Hello, everyone. I gotta finally hit record on these sooner or later. I do all this prep, read a bunch of stuff, and I decided to start trying to do some news every day. And I want to do a lot of different topics, but I want to deal with the UFO stuff first, as opposed to most news you'll see out there is like stuck toward the very end. But here we have some interesting news from a Wisconsin representative calls for UFO clearinghouse, no penalty for reporting sightings. And this is not the guy. This is the guy, Glenn Grothman, who's from Wisconsin's 6th district. And so UFO people about to make this guy famous. Although it is similar stuff. I mean, this is juicy, but it's even juicier when they start to go after the money, after the tech and the Defense Department contractors and stuff like that. That's what they took the teeth out of where it came to the NDAA. They don't like it when you go after the money. But anyway, I digress. A former Air Force intelligence officer. Okay, this is a caption for this thing. Pursuing a lifelong interest, U.S. Representative Glenn Grothman has proposed legislation establishing a federal clearinghouse to collect and report sightings of unidentified flying objects and to protect civilian airline personnel from repercussions for reporting such phenomena. So, this has to do with, making sure that people are protected in their jobs, they get to keep their jobs. That's huge, because, for decades, almost a century, it seems, people have been afraid to even talk about these things for fear of losing their jobs and losing their livelihood, and just being called crazy for good reason. All this non-stigma is new, even if it's not even aliens per se. It's like the unknown is stigmatized. So the proposal comes amid a surge of interest in Congress into UFOs, increasingly referred to by the blander but more all-encompassing phrase "unidentified anomalous phenomena." Right. So it's talking about the hearing. Described seeing UFO accelerate supersonic speeds. This is just giving the lay person some background on this. Since I was a child, this is Grothman. Since I was a child, unidentified objects in our airspace have been a topic of interest, said he, who wrote the bill with Representative Robert Garcia, a Democrat from California. I believe these are new names. So the infection is spreading in a good way. This is the kind of rash you want to get. With the majority of Americans believing that the government has suppressed information on UAPs, our bipartisan effort highlights our need for transparency from the federal government regarding UAPs to better protect the safety and security of American citizens. Yes. And also, secure against the encroachment by the military-industrial complex. Already encroached. But let's start peeling back some of that onion now, will we? It's a little late, but we could start heeding the words of Eisenhower just a little bit. The bill would establish procedures for the government to collect, investigate, and report out incidents, including adverse physiological effects or the disruption, interference, or interaction with flight instruments potentially caused by an unidentified anomalous phenomena reported by civilian aircrew, air traffic controllers, flight attendants, aviation maintenance personnel, aviation dispatchers, air carriers, or operators in airports. Critically, the legislation would prohibit the Federal Aviation Administration from taking into account reporting of such phenomena when evaluating the competency or medical fitness of pilots or other civilian aviation employees. Airlines would also be barred from retaliating against employees for reporting them. So, this is all good. There's not a lot of bad here. Some of us wish it would go further, but this is good. Dabbling around the edges here is where you set up this mass effect of taking away some of the secrecy, taking away a lot of the stigma, and then we can get to the real meat of the nut of the thing, right? So, pilots are trained observers of our skies, but I've heard from dozens of frustrated pilots from major airlines who witnessed USP, yet no confidential way to report them to the government. Oh, this is Graves. It sounded familiar. That's, the Navy guy that was reporting a bunch of stuff. Now has a nonprofit dedicated to this, as well as, I think, a technology think tank devoted to it. Anybody that wants to start up a tech think tank with me and give me some funding would be great. We were just talking about warp drives and anti-gravity, and we have a few experimenters, and, doing all this and worrying about the rent at the same time is, not complaining, but I'm just going to keep going. Just under 60% of Americans think the U.S. government has more information about UFOs and aliens than they're publicly willing to share. That was from a Redfield and Wilton Strategies poll. Just over a third of Americans think that federal government possesses non-human vehicles. 36% said they didn't know. It's a remarkably small number of people that are unsure, right? Like, you would think that was higher. Alright, so that's it for this. Now, this guy, Glenn Grothman, she's, looks like he's pushing 70. He's, been a part of the state assembly. Yeah, seems like a decent character. And who's this other guy here? Hold on. And I mean, a lot of these guys might just be capitalizing on the popularity of it, but hey, we'll take the win. Robert Garcia, let's look him up really quick. Robert Garcia, California politician. So just so you know who these guys are. Oh, okay, he is in that thing. Yes, Garcia. Yes. He is at the top of that. Although they didn't put up a picture of Grothman, I guess Garcia is just slightly more photogenic. Anyway, moving on. We had the Iowa caucuses yesterday, and Mr. Trump swept the floor. It's a little too early to call the entire primary for him, but it's not looking good for anybody else that's in there. He did quite well for himself. Anybody that thinks that people are abandoning him because of, allegations of insurrection and so forth, election tampering, might have their hopes dashed. The more he's attacked, the more people come behind him. I am not exactly in support of his policies, but I have to say that it's quite undemocratic to try and remove somebody from the ballot and try to ruin their chances before they get out there. He won the Iowa caucuses handily. The major networks called for him as soon as the doors opened. Almost as soon as the doors opened. And there was never really any question that he wouldn't win, but at the same time, it's interesting to see it actually happen, because there are a lot of people, hey, it's all up in the air until the thing actually happens. I gotta pause. Hey, back again. So, we were talking about Donald Trump and the nomination, and here it's talking about how really we're told that he's the enemy of the people and all this other stuff, but at the same time, you have like all this money, all these billionaire donors pouring money into the alternatives, into the Nikki Haley campaign and the Ron DeSantis campaign, kind of like in almost like desperation. And DeSantis was supposed to be Trump without the baggage and all this other stuff. So, they're just incredulous that so many people could be supporting him still. And it's a real... It's not exactly a rags to riches story. It's not exactly an underdog story, but it is a story of Oh, the moneyed interests in the United States really, 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 really don't like this guy and don't want him to be president. Which, has an opposite effect. I think the United States people just are giving a huge middle finger to the establishment and walking off, and they're just whoever you don't want, we want. It's a real opposite thing, which I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work out, but yes. Trump has long been understood as a morbid symptom of America's failed institutions. That pretty much encapsulates it. The irony of all this, of course, is that, he is literally, it's the beginning day of a second round of the E. Jean Carroll trial, defamation trial. I don't know if this is sentencing or awarding. She's already been awarded $5 million. She's going to be awarded $10 more million. Trump denies anything happened. I've looked a little bit into these details, and they're scant. There's a little bit of entrapment going on with the allegations and the sort of quote-unquote evidence. It's quite circumstantial. I don't know what to think about it. But either way, it's another situation of not a witch hunt so much as it really doesn't matter. Every single thing people do to try and defame this guy in any way but the ballot box, it's just not going to work. And it looks like all told, a lot of those are going to fall flat. I heard recently, I think the Georgia state trial, the prosecutors had a very large conflict of interest. I think the prosecutor hired as one of the main lawyers, a current lover and other stuff like that. It's very interesting. Interesting times we live in where, this guy's corrupt, but they're all very, 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 very corrupt. And in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, as they say. And this is just a really sad state of affairs for our world. And I can't, like I said, I don't approve of many of his policies. One of which is Israel. He's possibly worse on Israel than Biden, which is hard to believe, given that Biden's going around, Congress to deliver more aid and more weapons to Israel to bomb more folks. But I digress. So we have an escalation between the U.S. and Iran. Iran launches missile strikes in northern Iraq and Syria, claims to destroy Israeli spy base. So this is after weeks and weeks of the U.S. bombing different targets in Iran and Syria. We basically have a semi-illegal military occupation going on in Syria. We quote-unquote own a third of Syria. That just basically means we have military occupying the area. Iraq has been telling us, very frankly, the democratically elected government of Iraq that, elected their own representatives, and turns out they don't like us very much, and they're like, leave. It's been several years of this, and, it's, we just sent in 1,000 more people to these areas. So, let's see what's going on here. Reckless missiles. Oh, see, when they do it, it's reckless. When we do it, it's surgical, targeted. When Israel drops 2,000-pound bombs on whole neighborhoods and levels the whole neighborhood, that's defense, self-defense. But, we get one hit from Iran, and it's reckless. Who's calling it reckless that the United States is basically escalating to World War III with the entire world here? Come on. And when I say the entire world, I don't mean the entire world is attacking us, but we are losing face with the entire world. As the fiduciary, we did take the foreign currency reserves of Russia and Afghanistan. Yes, those are adversaries, but that's still not how it's supposed to work, guys. Not when you told the entire world in follow-up to the Bretton Woods Agreement that you're going to curate and safeguard the assets of the world. It's not just like, oh, we don't like you, so we're going to take all the money from your citizens. That's not how it works. So, yeah, they're calling the bluff, and that combined with the court case in the ICJ, International Court of Justice, where South Africa is charging Israel and by proxy us with genocide. You know, it's not just Israel. Like, those bombs are coming straight from us, are going around Congress, you know, avoiding approval to do so. And that's not going to go unpunished or without consequences. So Iran's Revolutionary Guards on Monday launched ballistic missiles. Oh, they're all ballistic at what it said was a spy base for Israel's intelligence agency Mossad in northern Iraq and anti-Iran terror groups in Syria in the latest escalation of hostilities that further risk spiraling into a wider regional conflict. And, you know, it's not that when CNN is basically salivating and chomping at the bit when we drop bombs on a Yemeni airport, civilian airport, in reaction to the Houthis being the only group seemingly to attempt to stop a genocide ongoing, and not actually, I don't think they actually killed anybody. I think they're just doing stoppages and disrupting the flow of commerce. So our response, kill them. Like I said, if you didn't want any of this stuff, you could have stopped at the UFO stuff. But here we go. Iranian forces said the midnight missile strike in Iraq destroyed one of the main espionage headquarters of Israel in Erbil, capital of the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region, in response to what they said were Israeli attacks that killed Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders and members of the Iranian Resistance Front. There was like a bomb placed at like the funeral or memorial procession of Qasem Soleimani, and whether or not you like that guy or those folks, that wasn't cool. I'm not sure who did it, but it seemed to be tongue-in-cheek Mossad. That seemed to be indicated. I'm not sure if that's what they're talking about here, but that did happen. This headquarters has been the center for developing espionage operations and planning terrorist acts in the region and Iran, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said in a statement on Monday. Yuck. Sucks when they strike back. At least 4 civilians were killed and 6 others injured in the attack, according to a statement early Tuesday by the Security Council of the Kurdistan region. I believe that we're at 23,000 people killed in Gaza, 2/3 of which are women and children. A large villa belonging to a well-known Kurdish businessman was also destroyed, according to a CNN journalist in the region. There were unconfirmed reports of casualties at the residential property, though it is not known if the building was an intended target. This blatant violation undermines the sovereignty of the Kurdistan region and Iraq, the security said. I wonder, here's what I think might be undermining the sovereignty of the Kurdistan region and Iraq. United States troops in Iraq, Mossad in Iraq, still, after... It was 2003, 2004. I think it was 2004. Yes, I was a child when we invaded that country. So, not exactly a child. I was about to graduate high school, but legally a child. And we're still there? Holy fuck, what? I mean, come on. Fired ballistic missiles at bases of anti-Iran terror groups in occupied territories of Syria. Claimed the targets were involved in the recent dual bombings in the city of Kerman during a memorial. Okay. Right. So they're saying they bombed a spy. They suspect a spy base involved. They suspect in these bombings. There it is. Qasem Soleimani. That left scores dead and wounded. Yeah, there were kids, freaking just random normal people going, and it was just hundreds just blown to bits randomly. No warning whatsoever. Just suitcase bombs, basically. Really, really dirty stuff. So, ISIS claimed responsibility for the deadly twin blast near Soleimani's burial site. It was the deadliest attack in Iran since the 1979 revolution. Okay. So those kind of conflict. Iranians are saying it was Mossad. ISIS is claiming responsibility, though. So that's slightly confusing, but yeah, I'm not sure why ISIS would do that. Doesn't make a lot of sense in the occupied territories. So, yeah. Concerns of an escalating war. Israel's relentless bombing of Gaza in response to Hamas' October 7th terror attacks has killed more than 24,000 people, according to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health. As far as I know, and as far as I've heard, that 24,000 number is 2/3 women and children, innocents, whereas the October 7th terror attacks did claim some civilians, but by and large, a large number of mostly combatants, military-age Israelis, which in Israel you're, inducted into the military service as soon as you turn 18, and you're required to do a year tour. And so, yeah, I don't want to go out and say there are no civilians in Israel, but as far as adults in Israel, they'll have at least been military service people and, participated in the Palestinian occupation. Like, what do Israelis do with their military? Well, conduct the Palestinian occupation. That's what they do. So, and yet, so there's a huge disparity there. Just saying. On Monday, a Houthi missile hit a U.S.-owned cargo ship in the Red Sea, marking what appears to be the first time the militants have successfully struck a U.S.-owned or operating ship. Yes. So this is the first time they've actually hit a U.S. ship, yet, we've launched strikes on them as if they're the second coming of Satan, and slightly disproportionate. It's just as if we run the world, and if you have anything to say about it, you die. Anyway, moving on. Into some science news. Wonderful science news. A decade-long dark energy survey offers new insights into the expansion of the universe. The most recent results from a survey of over 1,500 supernovas calls the standard model of cosmology into question. Ooh, standard model, you're on notice. And I don't know, like, there's always headlines like this that grab the attention, like, call into question. I would say it needs some adjustment, right? It's the standard model. Although, right, like, calling something the standard model is really, I don't think that's a good answer. Like, you're always going to be updating the standard model. It's the standard model. How do you go off of that? A survey of over 1,500 and that's, incorporating GR and quantum mechanics and to an extent string theory, although there's a lot of folks that would say that string theory hasn't been proven. I would beg to differ on some levels. We did find the Higgs boson and so on. So a lot of string theory has been proven. Survey of over 1,500 supernovas conducted by the Dark Energy Camera has placed strong constraints on the accelerating expansion of the universe. Ooh, there's limits to how fast the lambda force is expanding the universe. suggesting that the mysterious force that drives cosmic acceleration, dark energy, may change over time, varying in density, which calls the standard model of cosmology into question. That is interesting, because I've thought myself that there's differences to that, and also maybe differences to the propagation of the speed of light, as far as variations in the density and warpage of space-time would create differences in the passage of time. When you have light that passes through it, it's not that the speed of light itself changes, it's that the perceived speed of light changes because you're changing one of its variables, time. So the speed of light being a function of distance over time. Results were delivered by the largest sample of supernovas ever harvested by a single instrument as part of the Dark Energy Survey. Supernovas were integral to the discovery in the late 1990s that not only is the universe expanding, but is also doing so at an accelerating rate. So I'll bet they're talking about standard candles, which are these huge supernovas. I think maybe those are quasars. Either way, they show the expansion of the universe and the age of the universe by looking at these known points of light in distant galaxies. There's any number of problems that could potentially come from that, but we're doing the best that we can from this teeny tiny, one piece of dust, observing all the other dust and making vast conclusions in the middle of a dust ball. So, take it all with a grain of salt, folks, or a grain of dust. So, results were delivered by largest sample of supernovas ever harvested by a single instrument as part of the Dark Energy Survey. Supernovas were integral to, not only is the universe expanding, but it's also doing so at an accelerating rate. That was a huge surprise to physicists who had expected that after the initial rapid inflation of the cosmos during the Big Bang, cosmic expansion should have slowed down, but is speeding up. So that's leading to what they call the Big Rip. It's eventually, and the quote-unquote heat death of the universe. But there could be trouble in the cosmos. Let's see. Dark energy was suggested as a placeholder for whatever unknown aspect of the universe is causing that mysterious and troubling cosmic acceleration, but scientists can't say for certain what it is. That problem is compounded by the fact that dark energy is now thought to account for 65 to 70% of the total energy and matter in the cosmos. Shows that Dark Energy Survey at the Victor M. Blanco 4-meter telescope at Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory in northern Chile shows that observations of supernovas remain integral to solving the mystery that such investigations triggered 25 years ago. The results were presented at the 243rd meeting of the American Astronomical Society on January 8th, 2024. Oh, those are the guys that demoted Pluto, with the team behind them adding that they are consistent with the standard model of cosmology, the so-called lambda cold dark matter model, lambda CDM, that features a universe with accelerating expansion. These place the tightest constraints on the history of expansion throughout the 13.8 billion year history of the cosmos, but they also leave breathing room for more complex models of the universe. Investigating dark energy with standard candles. Okay, so, yes, type Law supernova. Type 1A supernova. That's just a badly written one. Okay. Observing 2 million distant galaxies. These occur when, of this sample, machine learning was able to determine that 1,499 were a special type of stellar explosion called a Type 1A supernova. These occur when dead stars, called white dwarfs, which have long exhausted hydrogen to drive nuclear fusion and convert to helium in their cores, exist in a binary system with another star. Type 1a supernovas are so uniform that scientists refer to them as standard candles. Okay, so I was right. It's all standard candles. Thought for a second they were quasars, but I shouldn't second guess myself. Additionally, because the wavelength of light from distant objects is stretched toward the red end of the electromagnetic spectrum, so it's, red shifted. That's how they can tell how far they are away. Allegedly, that's also how fast they're moving away. Or the more distant things we can tell are more red shifted because they have been moving away longer, or are moving away faster because there's more energy applied to them. I'm not entirely convinced of that, by the way. I'm not a huge fan of Lambda CDM, personally. And I think there's might be other stuff involved, like maybe interference from gravity waves, which we now have confirmed exist, and so forth. Imagine looking through a bunch of frog eggs. You're in one of the frog eggs, in the middle of it. You're looking askant through all the edges of all the frog eggs into the center of others. And what the light would do. We go ahead and assume that's all empty space out there. It may be, but even empty space can do all the shifting of the speed of light. Go figure. So distant, flying away from us is not the only thing that can redshift light. Also from studying UAPs and from Einstein himself, that changes in warping of space-time can redshift things and blue shift things. So it's a weird universe out there. We might not really know the truth about a lot of these things until we get outside our own solar system, maybe even outside our own galaxy. We're just stabbing in the dark, literally. Dark energy wasn't always so dense. Anywho, this might deserve its own freaking video. But it's really interesting stuff. While all this stuff is happening on Earth, we're discovering these unique things about the universe that are blowing away old presupposed established theories. So, and another science news. A key moment is revealed in ancient fossils. Researchers that have precisely dated ancient multicellular fossils to 565 million years ago using volcanic ash layers as time markers. Okay. So, key moments in Earth's history and the evolution of complex life after a global ice age. That would be Snowball Earth. Forget the name of that, the technical name of that, but it's probably going to be Ediacaran. Oh yeah, the Ediacaran age. So there's some weird ones that came out before the Cambrian explosion, and a lot of it might have to do with this long period of what we call Snowball Earth, which is just basically the whole planet was covered with thick glaciers, like as far as the eye could see, for millions of years. And this could have actually had a lot more to do with the foundation of life than a lot of people want to shake a stick at. With similar Ediacaran fossils found at sites around the world, including in Australia. Dating the fossils identifies them as being part of an ancient living community that developed as Earth thawed out from a global ice age. I say as it thawed out from a global ice age, but these creatures would be in some ways resemble modern-day marine species such as jellyfish, yet in other ways be bizarre and unfamiliar. I think Charnia. Yeah, some appear fern-like, others like cabbages, whereas others resembled sea pens. The fern-like Charnias. I think it was an animal that looked like a fern. So we have a lot of these analogs, maybe descendants, but maybe also analogs. Convergent evolution might have a lot to say here. Study co-author, professor. So who's the authors? Lead author, PhD student Anthony Clark, and co-author Professor Chris Kirkland. So the professor is the co-author. That's refreshing. Also from the Timescales of Mineral Systems Group at Curtin said the fossils are named after the Ediacara Hills in South Australia's Flinders Ranges, where they were first discovered, leading to the first new geological period established in over a century. These Welsh fossils appear directly comparable to the famous fossils of Ediacara in South Australia. So an interesting thing is that I guess it's just really, really old rock in Australia, because you also have Shark Bay, which is the home of a lot of the sedimentary photosynthetic microbes that begat those hexagonal stacks, those rock stacks there, represent some of the earliest life we know of from billions of years ago. Also in Australia and other places too, but they're still living in Shark Bay. They're living fossils. If you were to take a look at those, you would, with a microscope, you would see the single-celled organisms still photosynthesizing light the same way they did billions of years ago. Ediacaran fossils record the response of life to the thaw-out from a global glaciation, which shows the deep connection between geological processes and biology. Underscores the importance of understanding these ancient ecosystems in order to unravel the mysteries of Earth's past and shape our comprehension of life's evolution. Cool beans. Well, let's see what else. Newly discovered ring of galaxies threatens our understanding of the universe. Threatens our understanding of the universe. Rocking your worldview. They're always like that, these headlines. Cosmic megastructure more than 9 billion light years away from Earth challenges what we know about the universe. Spotted a massive ring of galaxies, roughly 1.3 billion light years wide. A structure like this shouldn't exist. But the fact that it does means we might not get space as well as we think. Wow, that's fascinating. Do tell us more. Alexia Lopez, the PhD student who found the Big Ring, you got the Big Bang and the Big Ring, presented her discovery Thursday at the 240. A lot of stuff happening at the 243rd meeting of the American Astronomical Society in New Orleans. Dang, that's like, I don't know what it is about the 243rd. Numerologists chime in here, Smack it down in the comments. What's up with that 243rd meeting of the American Astronomical Society in New Orleans? However, further analysis revealed that the Big Ring is shaped more like a corkscrew comprised of galaxies and galaxy clusters. It's seen near Bootes in the Herdsman, a large constellation in the northern sky. According to a UCLN, I don't know what that means, statement, there are a few possible explanations. One is that it's related to baryon acoustic oscillations, which appear as spherical shells in the arrangement of galaxies, but the Big Ring is too large to suit this explanation and is not spherical. Another idea postulates that the ring is the product of cosmic strings created in the early universe. Cosmic strings. I guess we have the web, the galactic web, as they say, these filaments all across creation, and this just knew that there's this one, right? And it's what is interesting is, like, I'm not saying that's what this is, but we start finding weird stuff out of place and strange arrangements and perfect ring-like structures of galaxies and stuff like that. We start thinking about K4, K5 civilizations that are playing quote-unquote God with the heavens and leaving messages. Now this looks like plankton smiling. Like there's a plankton from SpongeBob. There's the eye and there's a big old happy face. The Big Ring and giant arc would look like in the sky, right? Very interesting. Bootes. So, it's not the first structure that call the cosmological principle into question. Lopez also found the giant arc. So the same gal has found two different world-shattering discoveries. Love to take her to coffee and talk about these wonderful discoveries. It's very, very interesting stuff. Come on my channel, we talk. Yeah, these oddities keep getting swept under the rug, but the more we find, the more we're going to have to come to face with the fact that maybe our standard model needs rethinking. That old standard model ain't so standard after all, I would say. And in some environmental news, we've got business and conservative interest groups that want to limit the power of federal regulators on Atlantic herring. And I think I saw something about this on Rising the other day, which is, they were requiring herring fishermen to pay for monitors who track their fish intake. So Congress did not appropriate the funds to pay these folks from the government to basically stay on herring fishing boats and monitor the take. And of course, I mean, I'm an environmentalist, but I understand the need for food and for commerce. So, where regulators go overboard, I can't necessarily agree. And in this case, it looks like they were forcing fishermen to pay for the people that were monitoring them directly, right? So I think it's like 20% of their profits on a given day, paying for people that aren't even part of the catch or the harvest, just in order to save the government some money. I understand it all. You need to have those monitors and stuff like that, but I don't think that that's necessarily needs to be the case that you have to pay them yourself out of pocket. Billions of dollars are potentially at stake in front of a court that, like the rest of the federal judiciary, was remade during Trump's presidency by conservative interests that were motivated as much by weakening the regulatory state as social issues during it, including abortion. So this is a weak state's attempts to, regulate where there's Congress will not appropriate the funds necessary to these things. Now, collapsing the herring fishery would not be a good idea. It's not a good idea for the fishery or for the people fishing it or for, climate or for anything else for that matter. So, we need to protect this as much as possible. I don't agree with a lot of the people pushing for this change. But there's a lot of premise here. This could be precedent. So this is setting a precedent for the rest of industries in the country. It just happens to be around the herring fishery. It does have implications on gun, e-cigarette, farm, timber, and home building groups are among the business groups supporting the fishermen. So, there's, I think they're saying that there's over-regulation, and the environmentalists, of course, are saying there's under-regulation. Can we find a middle ground? I think we probably can. I would say fucking get good people into Congress that actually appropriate the funds to get this stuff passed. Although, a lot of the conservatives are acting in bad faith as far as, in my opinion, as far as saying like, oh, we don't want this, we want that. Get Congress to do it. Well, kick it back to Congress so that Congress can do nothing, basically, because, when they're in control of Congress, they don't do anything. Although, to be fair, when the Democrats are in control of Congress, they also don't do anything. So it's the devil, the devil versus the devil you've got, or something like that. Either way, it's not a good situation. And I'm not sure where I really come down on this. I think if you're talking about profit, the industry doesn't need to profit as much as it thinks it does. I would say if you pay for your gas, pay for your day, pay for your people, pay for your CEOs and stuff, then the rest is profit, right? If you're taking 20% of that profit, that makes it sound like you're not going to be able to pay people. You're not going to be able to pay your workers. You're not going to be able to pay for the boats or the docks or any of that stuff. But that's not the case. You're taking profit, which is, in my book, okay if you're talking about impacting something that affects the global food security and the global climate. And fish movements actually do affect the global climate in a number of ways. So, anywho, there's that. Keep your eyes on this one. I think I'm going to call it for now. And appreciate you paying attention here. And, like, subscribe, share this if you enjoyed it. And thanks for listening to me rant. Have a good one. Bye-bye.